Okay, as I mentioned, I was going to have to bring up something about this whole gun situation, so here we go. Uh, I want to preface it by saying this. I had a very special relationship here over the last few years. Some of you know about that. But, this particular person thought that it was paranoid or schizophrenic to have preparations, to think that maybe things could fall apart. If anybody's ever gone through a hurricane, a tornado, an earthquake, or riots, you need to have preparations. It's not paranoid to prepare. It's not schizophrenia to do that. It's smart not to be prepared, to have some food, water, and some ways of protecting yourself, banding together with friends. That's stupidity. That's ignorance. All right, so I just want to say that up front. The reason why I'm saying that is because right now, with this whole thing that's happened in Connecticut and the shooting up there, they're even going after preppers as being terrorists. I told people many years ago that this thing of terrorism isn't an activity; it's a definition, and the definitions keep expanding, and there's a reason for that. You cannot trust your government. Let's start off here. The Second Amendment. Why was it made? Lexington and Concord, okay? 1776. You had the British coming. What were they coming for? Does anybody know? I'll tell you. The weapons, okay? In the arsenals of the colonists. They were coming to take them away. Jackboot the doors down and take out the muskets and the rifles and even the pistols, okay? Why did that infuriate the colonists? Because they need to protect themselves, and they knew, of course, that there was this tyrant over there. Let me point something out to you really quick. Who killed more people, or how many criminals do you know that have killed scores of people? A number. We just saw one here this last weekend. And that's horrendous. That's terrible, horrific. How many people have governments killed? In the 20th century, millions died. And I'm not talking just about World Wars I and II and Korea and all that stuff. I'm talking about the purges in Soviet Russia. I'm talking about Mao in China. I'm talking about Pol Pot in Cambodia. One lone gunman out here might take out a few score of people before they nail him. Governments think it's their right to kill anybody they want. You don't think it could happen here? Let me tell you something. If you look at history and see what's going on here piece by piece, that same problem is being set up here to eliminate a lot of our population. Now, some of you might even agree with that. I realize I'm teaching you the choir here. My family and friends don't feel that way, but in case somebody else sees this, just know that I'm talking in generalities here. Okay, so the real problem is governments. Governments are the real problem. And that Second Amendment wasn't put in there to protect us in our hunting rights. And I had a problem with that with the NRA in the 1970s. I wrote to them, I said, that's not what this is about. They ignored me. I really wonder about the NRA sometime. But the point is, the Second Amendment was put in there so that we had a way to protect ourselves against tyranny. Now, I recognize that the weapons that are available to the citizens aren't really going to deter the government to a very great extent, even if it was a mass rebellion or fight. Hopefully it will never come to that. I'm not foolish enough to think we can do that. But we can protect ourselves in our small groups to some extent against encroachments. And if enough people do that everywhere, then it causes a problem for the government if they ever decide to do what I think they're going to do here very shortly. Now, am I paranoid again? Look, just study history, okay? Where there's smoke, there's fire. Okay? And men are men. I don't care if they're called Americans. I don't care if they're called Russians. I don't care if they're called, whatever, Klingons. It doesn't matter. You always have these certain people that gravitate towards centers of power and then abuse it. It's just an axiom. Power corrupts. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. We have a problem here, ladies and gentlemen, and we need to be able to stand against it. Now let's get back to the shooter here. Connecticut, Aurora, all of these. I'm not sure about the Connecticut one, but a lot of these others have been false flags by the government. DARPA's been involved, drugs have been involved, psychiatrists at the government level have been involved. Something going on there. Again, where there's smoke, there's fire. I could go into some particulars, but if you ever saw The Bourne Legacy, that stuff is not fiction. What's the number one cause of death in the United States right now? Unnatural death. Suicide. What's been happening the last 20, 30 years? Serotonin uptake reuptake inhibitors. Prozac, all of those types of drugs. They even say that they can increase the level of suicides. And of course, suicide is a form of violence. So naturally, any kind of violence would follow through with that. And then you have all these mindless games of killing people in mass. I don't even know the name of Call of Duty, a whole bunch of other things. We're teaching our people with these drugs to go into this hypnotic trance and just do this stuff. Now, is taking guns away going to help stop that? Probably not, but let's just say that it does. How are you going to protect yourself against that guy that's coming through your door? How are you going to protect yourself against a home invasion robbery or somebody trying to take your car? Oh, it's not worth it, you say. You might hurt a bystander. Oh, the cops were real good at that in New York here a while ago, weren't they? Almost everybody injured or killed up there was done by cops shooting, back at that one lone gunman. Again, I'm going to point out, criminals may kill scores. Governments kill millions. All right. We saw our politicians crying and weeping over these children, and rightly so. But it's funny that they only do it when it serves their political purposes, and you've got to understand that. These people have no conscience. Especially the leader of this country right now. It's a sham, it's a joke. Because if it were true, he would do something to stop the drone attacks that are killing thousands of innocent people across the world. No tears there. Invade Libya without a declaration of war from Congress. You got to understand what's going on here, people. We have a tyrant, and I'm not saying just him. Bush was one as well. He wanted to be. We've had this problem with our leaders for a very long time, but they're getting more bold because they have a backing now. Powerful financial forces that want to take over for their own aggrandizement. Well, I'm running out of time here, so I better go through this really quick. Mass killings. If we're really going to be sad about something, about children, they really like to use children, and as horrific and terrible as that is, 2,000 unborn children die in the United States every day. Who cries for them? Oh, but the Supreme Court said that they're not human beings. Your mom thought you were, kept you around. They made a big deal about people turning in their weapons this weekend. Early this week, to say that they don't need them. Well, guess what? What they're not telling you is that millions thought the other idea and went out and bought weapons. If the government really wants to get rid of weapons and thinks that you don't have a right to self-defense, well, maybe they should set the example. The president doesn't need a protection detail, neither do the senators or congressmen, neither does Michael Moore, all of these people that say you don't need to protect yourself, but they can afford to hire people to protect them. Maybe we shouldn't be going out and hunting down these people in foreign countries and killing them, and all of the innocents. Around 200 people at a wedding party die to get one guy. Oh, that's just collateral damage. Here we call it terrorism. Waco. What was that? Oh, but they were wackos. Well, who decided that? And who decides that their lives aren't worth anything because they think different than you? And those were kids, by the way. I think there were some 20 or 30 of them. Governments kill more by the millions and millions than any single lone criminal ever has, unless he's a leader of a government. Tyrants disarm the populace. That's what they do to take over. A lot of false flags are going to happen here real fast. You're going to see more shootings. You're going to see more bombings. You're going to see airplanes come out of the sky. You're going to see, difficulty getting your basic needs met. More and more every day. But these false flags are going to be coming fast and furious now. I don't mean that as a play on words. Fast and Furious was a false flag. You know, they were trying to disarm us by saying that the Second Amendment was causing all this stuff in Mexico when our government, you know, sent those weapons down there to arm the cartels. You know, come on, people. Try to stay away from crowded areas, you know, population centers, things like that if you possibly can. Our intel services are going to hurt a lot of people here real soon. And I'll just say it, that's who's doing it. A lot of people would say, well, look at Australia. You know, they banned weapons back in the mid-90s after the Tasmania shooting, a mass shooting down there. All I'll say about this is that I haven't had time to compare a whole lot of information there. But here you are with Australia going through disarmament. And yes, yeah, they haven't had any mass shootings. Personal violence, I don't know what the statistics are on that right now. But guess what? Let's look at Switzerland. Low crime, and everybody has an automatic weapon and a pistol in their home. In Israel, you know, you have Feinstein and Bloomberg and all these Israeli lobby people, you know, who are constantly, you know, telling us that we need to disarm. Hey, you know what? In Israel, the schools even have the teachers take weapons, and they have lockers that they put them in there. Why not here? Oh, the gun is bad. No. There is a difference between a gun and a screwdriver. A gun is a tool of violence. It was intended to be that way. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't have a legitimate purpose. Violence to protect yourself against violence on you, absolutely proper. Okay. We need to get behind people like Representative Walter Jones. He's a Republican from North Carolina. He's going after Obama's use of the military to inflict wars on other countries without the approval of Congress. We need to grab this thing in. I think it's too late, actually, but we need to at least continue to try. And you know, people like Ron Paul, I gave you that link to his farewell speech. Those things are all very important for our edification and our understanding. So to sum all this up, it's been quite quick, and I'm sorry I've jumped around a little bit. I actually was going to sit down and write a script and try to talk about it that way, but you know, when you do that, you kind of lose some of the spirit, some of the passion. And so I do have a few notes, but I want you to see that, you know, as passionate as I am, it's not from a position of lunacy. It's because I've dealt with this all of my adult life. Since I was 23 years old, I went into the Army. And I spent 28 years at that in police work and security services. I know what I'm talking about. You know, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth where somebody else took care of me and even made sure that I had an armed guard with me every day. All right, I've been out on the street. I've been in places where it's difficult. And a government that is not going to allow you to protect itself because they think that there's something morally wrong with that, that's a government that you need to fear. We need to change it back. You know, there's an old saying, a government that fears the people are free. All right. Well, I probably worn out my welcome. But don't let anybody tell you that you don't have a right to protect your family, and that with a firearm. A firearm is the very best way to do it under almost every circumstance. You know, they talk about all the murders and things that happen in the country with guns, but they never tell you the statistics for people that protect their families and avoid violence by the presence of a gun. Second Amendment is ours, as is the entire Bill of Rights that they're trying to assault right now. That Bill of Rights was not put in there to be taken away. It's unalienable. Those are God-given rights that the government is supposed to protect you in carrying out. They try to take them away from you under whatever reason, they are the enemy. All right. Thanks for listening. Well, I'm sure I'll do this again in a few days. Bye.